Welcome to Unleash the Awesome with Dave Gambrill. All of us have unique skills, talents, and abilities that aren't being used to their full potential. Our mission is to share the people, tools, apps, and other resources that will help you unleash your awesome on the world.
Yo, what's up? It's Dave. Welcome to another episode of the Unleash the Awesome podcast. Today, I want to talk about how to train yourself to be an entrepreneur while you are still working full-time. I know for many, many people, the allure of entrepreneurship is great. And the idea that you can control your own destiny, your own time, your own freedom, your own finances. People love that. That's what they're drawn to. But I also know that there's a risk involved with making that leap. And that's usually what keeps people held back. So one of the things that was super helpful for me, if you don't know my background, I did spend a fair amount of time in corporate America. I spent about 12 years selling drugs out of the back of my car for a pharmaceutical company, legally, obviously. I did that for a while. I also worked for professional sports teams, both in the minor leagues and the major leagues. So I worked for teams like the Philadelphia Flyers and 76ers and all of the arenas and the parent company that own those arenas. And so I also did advertising, sales, and marketing for events that happen there. So big concerts, the circus, all kinds of things like that. So, multi-million-dollar deals and contracts. And I did a bunch of other things, worked in a bunch of other, roles and things, and also I'm a military veteran, right? So I take all of those things, I take all that experience, and that has all helped me to be a better entrepreneur. But it wasn't until probably 5 or 6 years before I thought I was really going to make the push to get out of corporate America and do something full time that I was getting very intentional about what I'm going to share with you right now, which is this. I started thinking about building a side hustle, and I did build a side hustle. So I dipped my toe in the water. I had some things going, and I had opportunities in my corporate jobs to get promoted or to take on new roles or new responsibilities. And one of the things a mentor said to me, which I'm so glad they shared it with me, so that's why I'm sharing it with you today, is don't take roles or promotions just for the incremental amount of money that you'll get. Look at things that will help you build your skill set as an entrepreneur. So in other words, operate as an intrapreneur, right? Working in the company and doing the best as a good employee, right? I'm not saying you're trying to shortchange your employer, right? Do the best you can as an employee, but look for things, look for opportunities, look for certifications, look for roles, look for leadership opportunities where you can start to flex your entrepreneur muscle, because you will learn a lot of things in that corporate space that will serve you well when you become an entrepreneur. So once I started getting that in my head, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So one of these companies I work for is a big software company, worked for them for about 3 years. And it was really my last stint as working as an employee. I was on site for them 3 or 4 days a week, worked from home a couple days a week. And one of the things I really got smart about there was saying, what are some things that I could do that will not only serve the organization here, but will serve me in my next role as an entrepreneur, as doing my business full time. So I pursued all kinds of different certifications, all kinds of job sharing responsibilities, like worked with some other departments and shadowed them and saw what they were doing. I spent a lot of time digging into how different departments operated because I had to share. I was doing leadership training and consulting and helping them build out their management layer at the software organization that was growing super fast. They were going from, short of $100 million a year to then they were doing $100 million a year, and then they were on track to do $200 million pretty quickly. And they were just had to hire managers and promote people as managers or whatever who didn't have any leadership experience. So I was helping them build that out. And because I had to do that, I had to go into the different departments and figure out what makes them tick and what they do in their department, what the deliverables are, things like that. So I started to get really good at paying attention to different aspects of a business, how they grow, how they operate, what their metrics are, what they care about, what they don't care about. And so obviously I was doing it with the intent of helping that organization, but also in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, these are all things that I can pay attention to and learn and that will serve me later as an entrepreneur. And I think one of the biggest ones, the biggest aha moments, I guess, or epiphanies, was I was sitting through one of their town halls that they did quarterly, where the CEO had this thing about reading the org chart. And at the time, there was 250 employees. And so he would go through and read the org chart, and it was so boring. But one of the things I started to discover was wait, as something scales and grows, there are going to be different roles and different responsibilities. And what is the span of control of certain people, and what are they doing? And can one person do all this, or should it be divided? And so instead of thinking of it as being super boring and having to sit through this, I started thinking, oh, okay, let me think about this from my standpoint as an entrepreneur. As I'm growing and scaling my own business, what are some things I should be concerned about? And so once I had that new lens, I would sit through those things super excited. And other people look at me what is that guy? Why is he so excited? What is his problem? But it's because I was thinking about the future. And even when it came to sharing financial results, and they would be talking about, all these things in EBITDA and all these things I didn't know about, I was oh, okay. So they started explaining and defining what these things were in the financial reports and what they look like. And I started looking at the power of recurring revenue. So they were talking about monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue. And I was wait a second, if they can do that in their business, I bet there's a way for me to do that in my business. What would it look like? And many of you that have been following me know that would look like a coaching program or a membership group or a continuity program or something like that, right? So I'm watching all that and seeing the power of all of it. And I thought, oh, that would be pretty cool to apply to my own business, right? So I think a lot of you will get in a situation where you're working full time and you get frustrated that you can only allocate X amount of hours a day to your side hustle that you eventually want to grow to your full-time business. And what I'm telling you is you can actually dedicate a fair amount of your day, again, don't mishear this, being super focused on your role as an employee and delivering tremendous amount of value for your employer, but also thinking in the back of your mind, how will this skill set, how will this tool, how will this conversation, how could this serve me for later? Because essentially you're going to get a free education on a lot of these things, right? And so you can start getting smart about, who you, once we go back to kind of working in an office, who you go out to lunch with, the questions that you ask, when you're sitting in meetings like this, the different mindset you can have. Instead of being boring, can you get some value out of it? Can you think about how this could apply to you? And I think that will be one of the most valuable things that will serve you. And so that allows you to keep your energy and your emotion around your business throughout the day, right? Because it's just kind of there, just kind of hovering over you, and you're doing your job, you're doing the best you can, but always thinking about these things. So then when you do have time to commit to your business, when you are on your commute on the way home, and maybe you're making a hands-free voice call to somebody, or you're listening to a podcast, or you're just thinking about the strategy that you need to implement when you get home for your own business, for your own side hustle, you haven't wasted that entire day, because you have some new ideas, you have some new concepts, you have some new strategies that then you can put into play in your own business. And you don't really skip a beat. You come home, maybe you have dinner with your family, you do what you need to do to be a good parent or a spouse or partner, whatever. You do all those things. And then what I did, once everybody's in bed, I was spending time in front of my computer, building my funnels, sending out my emails, all that stuff. But a lot of the things that I put in those funnels, a lot of those things that were in those emails were things that I thought about or I learned through my experience in my corporate role, right? So that would be my encouragement to you is, on your role to being an entrepreneur, can you be an intrapreneur inside your company that you work for? Find some things, find some tools, find some challenging, find some job roles to volunteer for. Think about, if you're going to say yes to some opportunities internally, are they a match for you externally as well, right? And a lot of this will have to do with how soon you plan on leaving and things like that. So don't shoot yourself in the foot. If you think you're going to be at this company for a long period of time, don't turn down a promotion if it's going to be career suicide, right? But think about, do you really want to take on the extra responsibility for an extra $1,000 a year, when in reality, you could go in your side hustle, and if you've built some kind of audience or whatever, you can make $1,000 by sending an email. And that was kind of the epiphany that I came to when I was working in corporate America. We were sitting in this big meeting for our district. There was probably, and this was when I had a sales role, there were probably 40 people in the room, and one of the managers got up and did this whole PowerPoint presentation, which was awful, right? It was way too long. It was 40 slides to basically tell us, we have this great bonus opportunity this year where if we worked our tails off and basically 20 other things that were way outside of our control happened, we could all get an additional $1,000 bonus. And I was like, dude, I could go home right now and send an email to my audience and make $1,000 in 5 minutes because I had built up the side hustle. I'd started to build the email list. I started to build the audience. And so I would hear things like that and like everybody's all excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, no. No. And not to say I didn't work towards that. I did work towards that, but it didn't have the same kind of motivation for me that maybe it did for others because I had another option. And that was kind of where I started really down the path of, wait a second, I can't control those 20 other things, right? And even if I do the thing I need to do, all those other 20 things are outside of my control. And the chance of them all falling into place is pretty slim, right? So that's when I really started saying, like, I can't do this anymore. I need to get focused on things that I can control, things that I can do. And that's where really I started honestly considering and strategizing for my exit from corporate America. And it didn't happen until, a few years later, but that was the aha moment for me where I started saying, okay, it's time. Right? So you're going to have that moment. You're going to have those thoughts. I would encourage you, though, to think about not only in your corporate environment, but everything else you do, can you use it as a learning experience, a learning opportunity, a teaching experience, a way to get more experience just doing something for your business? If you're in a nonprofit, if you do things for your church, if you volunteer for other things, are there things you can be doing there that will serve those organizations, but also be great ways for you to learn a new skill? Maybe you need to learn how to use Zoom or Google Meet or something. And so for your church or your nonprofit, you volunteer to help set up some webinars or calls or whatever. And that's a low risk way for you to learn how to use some of those tools, maybe use them for the first time. If they don't go, perfectly, that's okay. You have a lot of margin for error there. And I would imagine they'd extend you a fair amount of grace, especially if it's a religious organization, right? But you can practice these things, you can put them into place. So then when you do it in your business, it's not the first time you've done it, or it's not the first time you've thought about it, right? When I started doing my business full time, pretty much 80% of the stuff that I was doing was not the first time I had done it. I had done it in other ways. I'd seen it done in other ways. I participated in some way, shape, or form in how to do those things. And so it wasn't the first time. There was like maybe 20% of the stuff that was new or things I had to tweak because it was my own business, but I had seen a lot of this stuff before. I had done a lot of this stuff before. And so I'd encourage you to think about that as well as you are planning your exit from a corporate environment, from an employee mindset, to an entrepreneur mindset. Just think about the things you can learn, because you can learn and grow there, right? Basically on their dime. And then you can take that and extrapolate it to your side hustle and the stuff. And listen, again, don't mishear me. I'm not saying to take intellectual property. I'm not saying to do stuff during company time. I'm not even saying to do stuff on a company computer. Don't ever do that. Don't ever be doing your own side hustle stuff on your corporately owned computer or whatever for multiple reasons, but just don't do that. But as you're going through your day and you're thinking about things, right? Then when you go home and you're on your own computer, you're doing your own stuff on your own time, you can use a lot of that stuff as the stepping stones to have a successful business. Okay. So that's it for today. As you're going through your day-to-day activities, think about as being an intrapreneur, right? Being on the inside of things, how you can take those things and apply them to be an entrepreneur when it's time for you to go full-time into your side hustle. And until next time, go unleash your awesome on the world, whether as an entrepreneur or as an intrapreneur. But go do that today. See you.
Thanks for listening to Unleash the Awesome. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please share us on your favorite social media platforms using #UnleashAwesome.